Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Melanie Farah, and I have the honor of serving the people of the Fighting 5th District as Congresswoman Nikema Williams, Chief of Staff. Welcome to our virtual infrastructure roundtable. A housekeeping note for everyone. If you would like to ask a question of our guests, please enter them in the chat or email townhallga05@mail.house.gov. Once again, that's townhallga05@mail.house.gov. And we will do our best to address all of your questions. And with that, I am so happy to turn it over to my friend and our Congresswoman Nikema Williams.
Thank you, Mel. And hello, everybody. Welcome to our monthly town hall. I'm grateful that you keep coming back every month to get critical information, timely information. And I look forward to bringing you this information so that I can continue to answer your questions and demystify Congress through our monthly town halls. Y'all, President Biden, House Democrats, and my chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Peter DeFazio, who's with us tonight, are doing the work of the people. We know that America's infrastructure is crumbling and outdated. We see it every day as we drive the streets in our neighborhood, as we cross the bridges, when we take for granted just turning on our faucets and getting clean water. We know that we lag behind the rest of the world when it comes to so many critical parts of our infrastructure, from mass transit to broadband and the care infrastructure needed for families to go to work. With the American Jobs Plan, we're making the bold and visionary investments that we need as the country continues to build back better after the COVID pandemic. And in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, we advanced the Invest in America Act, which funds transportation and infrastructure projects in nearly every congressional district in the country. And I was proud to be able to advance several critical projects for Georgia's 5th Congressional District. 6 project funding requests for the 5th District were advanced out of committee, covering Fulton, Clayton, and DeKalb counties, along with legislative provisions based on my legislation, the WISE Act and the Restoring Neighborhoods and Strengthening Communities Act. The WISE Act permanently funds environmentally friendly clean water infrastructure projects at the local and state level. Clean water, y'all, is so much more than just an environmental issue. It's a human rights and civil rights issue because the lack of clean water threatens the health of all communities. And this bill will do exactly what I work to do in Congress every single day, and that is center those most marginalized and give everyone access to the full promise of America. My second bill that was included in the Invest in America Act is the Reconnecting Neighborhoods program, which will help undo the sometimes intentional damage caused by our federal government. And nothing is more prevalent and visible than what was done in the 1956 Federal Highway Act that literally divided and decimated Black communities. 2 of the worst examples of these projects are in the 5th District. The Sweet Auburn and Summerhill communities were torn apart by the downtown connector and I-20. And you saw the animation in the opening video, the destruction of what that looks like and what could be. Atlanta continues to lead the nation in income and mobility and in the racial wealth gap. So we must address equity if we're truly going to build back better. So my program intentionally ensures that the federal infrastructure programs that we build will serve communities rather than divide them. And y'all, I can talk all day about what the federal government is doing with infrastructure and what is included and what is considered infrastructure. But it's important that we bring other people into this conversation because nobody does this work alone. Here in the 5th District, we have leaders who are creating smart infrastructure projects that truly serve the people. And we'll do that tonight by hearing from some people that have been assembled who you probably already know because they've been leading in our communities. We get to hear how your needs are being met right here in the 5th District and how federal programs like the American Jobs Plan will continue to serve you as we continue to build back better. We have House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee Chair, Peter DeFazio, and we're going to kick things off with the fireside chat. And Chair DeFazio is a little busy, y'all, because you might have heard that there's a lot happening in DC around infrastructure right now. So he's going to be with us, and then we're going to hear from And I want y'all to know that this is alphabetical order, not in ranking of importance, because it's going to take all of us to do this work and truly represent the city that is the crown jewel of the entire Southeast. We have Clyde Higgs, CEO of the Atlanta Beltline. We have Stacey Key, President and CEO of the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council and Georgia's 5th Congressional District's representative on the Georgia Department of Transportation on the board. We have Jeffrey Parker, CEO of MARTA, and Josh Rowan, Commissioner of the Atlanta Department of Transportation. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. But I know that we have a lot of people who want the information that you're going to provide. And so I'm grateful for your time. Because of your thoughtful participation and the information that you'll share tonight, no other district is going to have constituents quite as knowledgeable about infrastructure projects as the ones right here in the Fighting Fifth. And Chair DeFazio, because I know you have a limited amount of time, I want to go ahead and turn it over to you to just give us some opening remarks, and then we will get started in our conversation.
Okay, Nikema, thanks. You all are very blessed to have Nikema as your Congresswoman. She is off to an extraordinary start. You know, I hadn't seen, her projects before. I'd never seen the graphics. They're beautiful. And we know that they're going to improve the lives of the community just from seeing those graphics in terms of livability, complete streets, things that, America has ignored for far too long. And that's also going to be a major policy provision in the bill. So she did a great job there in representing you all. But also, and she mentioned it, her provisions that are absolutely critical. They were proposed by President Biden, and she put the details and the flesh on what the president proposed. He went down to New Orleans and gave a speech by a flyover, which had divided a community of color. And it's aged out. It's got to come down. And he said, we're not going to put it back up. We're not going to divide this community. We're going to rejoin this community. And we will work on alternate and more reasonable ways to move the traffic, boulevards or some other alternative, which will be determined by amendments offered to improve her first version even by tremendous consultation and work with the communities. The communities were ignored when these things went in. They're not going to be ignored anymore. So that's a key portion of the bill. In the bill as written now, we're under some constraints. There's only $4 billion in the program, but the American Jobs Plan proposes $20 billion for that program, and I'm sure we could even exceed that number. Part of the plan is we have to get our surface transportation reauthorization done if we're going to transform surface transportation in this country. Under the reconciliation rule in the Senate, which are some are pushing to go to immediately, you can't make these kinds of policy changes. We could not have and fully implement what she is proposing in terms of rejoining communities. We couldn't have provisions I put in the bill to require every state to measure and have a plan to reduce their carbon pollution. We couldn't require states, many states just like to pave things over. We've been doing things the same old way for a very long time. We've added 35,000 lane miles in our 100 largest cities in the last 25 years. And the costs of congestion have gone from $16 billion a year to $170 billion a year. It doesn't work. We had a great initiative by GDOT, Virginia. They came in that the Republican administration was going to yet again widen the extraordinarily wide 95 south, $10 to $12 billion, but the projections by engineers were in 10 years it would be as bad as it is today. They said, well, there's got to be a better way to do it. They began negotiations and ultimately partnered with CSX to have not a high speed, but a higher speed rail line connecting Richmond to DC. And it's expensive. They have to build a new bridge over the Potomac River. It's very expensive. $5 billion. Costs half as much, and it will reduce congestion by 20%, are the projections. I was at the mayor of Richmond at my kickoff event, and he said, we really don't want to be a bedroom community in DC, but that's a possibility here because people will be able to get there regularly and on time for work. We have to do the same thing with transit. We have provisions in here. We used to measure transit by how cheap they could make it. No, we're going to measure it by how much it serves the people. That is, frequency is very important, and service into deserts, areas that have been unserved, underserved, ignored. All those are a major emphasis in this bill. And I mean, there's much, much more, obviously. It's a massive investment. And the plan is we get this bill through the House. We keep these programs intact with their language. I expect, in all honesty, the Republicans are going to, want to bargain us down. They're really focused on the money. Fine. Okay, we'll bring the money down. We keep the policies. We backfill with reconciliation and get what we need. In fact, at this point, the Senate isn't going to propose a transit title. Can you imagine that? Because Senator Toomey from Pennsylvania hates transit, and he's the ranking member.
2021, Chairman. How do you hate transit in 2021?
And anyway, so it's just unbelievable. But we're going to have we're increasing transit by 140%, which is just a start, because we have a $100 billion backlog to bring existing transit up to a state of good repair, let alone deal with the issues I just talked about, underserved, unserved communities, transit deserts. And we're not ignoring, I have the 38th largest district in America. We're not ignoring our rural areas either. They need help with transit in small cities and rural areas to access services with an older and aging population, aging in place. And there are many places in your region in the South also that are like this, where there need to be some transit options. So it's an incredibly comprehensive, transformative bill. And I am so pleased to have Nikema as a very strong partner. And we're going to have, they've already proposed 200 and something amendments. We had a markup that went from 10 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the morning without stop. Because the Republicans are opposed to dealing with fossil fuel pollution, the EV charging. They can't admit the climate change. They say, well, we'll do resilience. I said, why do you need resilience? Why is the sea level rising? Why do we have extreme weather events? Couldn't we deal with the root cause too? Nope, can't mention that word. We had quite a long markup, but we preserved the entire bill. And I expect with the help of Nikema and others, we will preserve it on the floor. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all the work you're doing down there in Atlanta. And, I hope to get to visit and see some of these great proposed projects and things you've already done.
So, Chairman, a quick question that I'm hearing from a lot of people, because I was all over social media making sure that people were engaged in the 19-hour committee markup process for the Invest in America Act. But then also they heard the big plan from President Biden on the American Jobs Plan. And so I think people are trying to figure out like the differences in the plans. And then there's a Senate version that has been rolled out. And so how that is going to come together and what the timeline for all of that is for actually getting resources to our municipalities and to our states that are in need right now.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have to get a little bit in the weeds on the answer, but the American Jobs Plan is way bigger than the surface transportation reauthorization and even the wastewater, drinking water parts that we're going to have in there, although our wastewater drinking water parts reflect the expenditures that the president wants. And there will be $40 billion in the state revolving fund, which hasn't been reauthorized since 1988. Low interest, no interest loans, but a lot of communities can't even deal with that. So there'll be a new $10 billion grant program for unserved, underserved communities that are low income. And that'll be on the drinking water side. There'll also be a new program on affordability that Frank Pallone and I tried to do in, I think, the CARES Act to help people even, to pay those bills. Time of pandemic, you get your water shut off. That didn't make much sense. So anyway, we're looking to something like the low-income housing assistance program for energy to do the same thing with water, wastewater, and that'll be part of it. But again, this is only part of his plan. For instance, member designated projects, they can't go through reconciliation. We can't backfill the $148 billion that we want to put into the Highway Trust Fund through reconciliation. I'm a little bit irreverent about this, but I call it the dead guy rule. I mean, Senator Byrd wrote the rule 28 years ago. He's been dead 11 years. The Senate parliamentarian has to consult with him through a seance or something to figure out what goes in or out of the bill. And what we saw in the rescue plan was it was arbitrary, it was capricious, and it's absurd. So we can't be bound by that. So we have to do our authorization. We'll move next week out of our committee. The Senate will move a bill. We'll negotiate that. If we can keep the policies, then when we move the American Jobs Plan and the parts that Republicans won't go along with for reconciliation, we will backfill all those programs with more money. That's the plan.
So people down in my district, Chair DeFazio, since I hold the seat that was once held by John Lewis, are very tuned in to the dead man rule in the Senate right now and how it is holding up progress on just so much. And so we are part of my monthly town hall series is to continue to demystify Congress. And so that was very helpful. So now they'll understand when we're talking about these things, what is actually happening and why things are being held up, but that is not stopping us from making sure that we continue to move things forward and get creative with how we're going to continue to serve the people because the needs are still there. And one of the things that in Atlanta, when I bring you down for a visit, the first thing that you'll notice, unless you hop on MARTA with me to take MARTA downtown, we're going to be sitting in traffic, Chairman. Because
I'll do MARTA, thanks. I've seen enough traffic in my life.
So I think that's the thing. We have to make sure that we are making commutes better because we still have people in other parts of the city trying to come into Atlanta to work where transit doesn't reach them. We have had some issues. We're working around that in other counties, having transit and people working in the 5th district, but living elsewhere. And so you touched on this a little, the increased funding for transit, but what does that look like in reality for a transit system like we have in Atlanta, and how is that going to help people's lives?
Well, there are provisions in the bill, as I said, to go to transit deserts, unserved, underserved communities, to connect them to the jobs. Right now, it can be virtually impossible for them to get there, or it involves an extraordinarily congested car commute. A lot of cities want to move to congestion pricing. I say, well, you can't just price people off the roads until they have another way to get to work. People who work for wages don't set the time they go to work. And so, you have to have the alternatives in place before you say, okay, now we're going to go for those who are just, using the roads and don't have to use the roads because now they have good options. And that's reflected all across the country. So there's a very strong emphasis on connecting those communities to the job center. And, there's some great plans in Los Angeles. I assume you have some plans there if we get more funding to you, and other major cities. Even my largest city here in Oregon, I don't represent it, but Portland is struggling mightily with congestion. They want to go to congestion pricing, but I say to them, there's a lot of people who live way out in Southeast because they can afford a house, but they got to work way up in Northwest at Intel, and they don't tell Intel, oh, I want flex time because I'm a production line worker. It doesn't work. I mean, they earn good salaries, $65,000 a year, but they can't afford, these punitive congestion pricing. I said, you get them transit options. I'll support I'll support you on that.
Well, Chairman, that sounded like a challenge to me because we can definitely get you some transit plans, and we have a lot of things that we are still working on here. And I'm thankful for you joining this conversation, and everyone that is tuning in, watching this. You see how we're able to make sure that we are addressing the needs through the lens that is people-centered, and we are making sure that everything that we're doing is also through an equity lens. And so I am grateful to be able to serve on the committee under your leadership and be able to serve my district and get them the projects that are going to make a difference in their lives. There's 3 counties in my congressional district, and the member designated projects, there's at least one project for each county that was advanced with the Invest in America Act, and we are continuing to work to make sure that we're still being creative with how we get people out of cars, onto transit, onto our trails with our Beltline system. And that is going to make a difference in people's lives, because it also helps them connect to job centers, as you were saying. So I'm grateful for your leadership on this. The 5th District will be tuning in, Chairman, as we continue this process. So you have a secondary district rooting for us, because your work helps us to live better lives here in Atlanta and the rest of the district. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. And if there is are there any closing words before you have to leave us?
Well, Nikema, I came in with John, and we were great friends. He came to my district and a number of times, and he was a giant. And I went on, a couple of times on the march with him. Well, the visit. And it was so extraordinary. He was such an extraordinary man, but you are a wonderful and worthy successor to John. I'm sure he's looking down and he's very proud of you.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I don't know if you can see behind me, but
I could see it.
Painting. And so the background are small pictures of me and Congressman Lewis at different aspects of our life. And she took his last picture that she found and even put his pin on his lapel. And so he's looking up, and it's like just the generational shift. And I have to pick up the mantle and keep doing the work, because there's a lot of people counting on me. So thank you for being a co-conspirator for justice with me and helping me to get it done.
You're up to the challenge. I know it. And if you need to push me, push me. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night. So y'all, that was the up-to-date information on everything infrastructure, transit that you can think of that is going through the United States Congress. Chairman DeFazio is the lead on all of this right now. And so we have the most up-to-date information. He is a champion for our district. He always makes sure that he's helping us to make sure that we have everything in place so that I can bring the resources back to continue to serve you better. But that is what is happening in Washington. And we don't do this work in silos. You have so many people that are working on your behalf that you might not have ever met, but tonight you get to meet them. So now you get to hear from some people right here in the 5th District, our infrastructure leaders on the ground. And there is so much going on that I know that you're going to get all of your questions answered, and it might even pique new questions for you. Up first, we're going to hear from the Atlanta Department of Transportation Commissioner, Josh Rowan. Earlier in June, Commissioner Rowan gave me a tour of Atlanta's DOT's biggest infrastructure projects. And I have to say that I was kind of impressed by the thoughtfulness of the planning and how his work truly, truly benefited the people. And sometimes that wasn't always easy. I know that he got the complaint. Some of you who might be listening in tonight, if you live on MLK and I got the phone calls and they're like, what are you putting in the middle of my road? I can't turn into my driveway. And now other parts of the city are asking, can you come and do that in my neighborhood? So I'm grateful for the partnership with Commissioner Rowan, and I'm going to turn it over to you for a few words.
No, thank you, Congresswoman Williams. It was certainly a great day. I've joked that I used to think people were telling me I was number one until I realized they were using their middle finger. And so, change can be difficult. And what we're really seeing with the city of Atlanta is a shift in focus from strictly moving cars within our streets to moving people. And how do we form a safe, equitable transportation system? And so my name is Josh Rowan. I'm Commissioner of Atlanta Department of Transportation, and we are proud that we are wrapping up year one of operations, and we are a COVID forged department. So we've done all of the work essentially in a full remote posture. So it's been a very interesting first year, and we look forward to many more good years to come.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowan, and welcome.
Thank you.
Y'all, next up, I have to tell you, a few weeks ago, Clyde Higgs, who's the CEO for the Atlanta Beltline, hosted a roundtable, and he had some bigger stars in the room. We had our Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, came down, and we were able to bring him over to the Beltline because the Beltline is a critical part of our Atlanta infrastructure. And it was a great educational event, and I learned a lot, and it made me make sure that when I am advocating for funding to come back to the district, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I can paint the picture for Chair DeFazio when I say that this Beltline project has to be included, and he understands what I'm talking about because we made the visuals and got him the information based on what we're getting from your team. So I'm happy that you could join me for another roundtable, Clyde, and I will turn it over to you for brief opening remarks.
Sure. So thank you, Congresswoman Williams. It's great to be with you. And thank you for pulling in Chairman DeFazio to the conversation earlier as well, and just his leadership as well on the transportation side, which ultimately is going to make our nation competitive when it comes to economic development. So thank you very much. And you're right, that was a wonderful discussion. I think that was the 21st of May, if I remember correctly, and really enjoyed that conversation. And for those, just a little bit of background there, with Congresswoman Nikema Williams and her colleagues, we hosted Secretary Pete from USDOT to have a conversation about transportation infrastructure and equity. And so I thought it was a really rich conversation. We talked a little bit about the Beltline here in Atlanta, which we are very proud of. We like to call it the People's Project because it is infrastructure that is focused on people. And ultimately, we're trying to push these outcomes to talk about economic development, job creation, affordable housing. And that's what the Beltline is. It is a comprehensive transportation reuse project within the city of Atlanta that is producing outcomes. And I'd like to share just a quick nugget here. So we've invested roughly about $670 million of funding into the Beltline project to date. What we've seen is almost an $8 billion economic investment impact around the Beltline that we're constructing right now. The goal is to have the project completed by the end of 2030. So we're still in the middle of construction right now, but we're pushing forward. There's been about 23,000 plus jobs created along the Beltline so far. With almost another 50,000 construction jobs that have been created because of this project. And so it's proven. We just need to get to the finish line by the end of 2030 to make sure that we're producing these positive outcomes for the community. And thank you, Congresswoman, for your tireless support, especially in the fighting fifth. You were just a breath of fresh air. And again, just someone that's thinking about transportation as an opportunity to connect communities versus what transportation infrastructure did in the past. So thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the continued partnership. So next up, y'all, whether you love MARTA or hate MARTA or are still undecided and we need to get you a Breeze card so that you can get on MARTA, everybody knows about MARTA, the country's 8th largest transportation system, and it is critically important to our district and to the state of Georgia. And I can't think of anyone better than CEO Jeffrey Parker to lead MARTA at this time. We need someone who is willing to push us to be creative. I saw some things on my tour with the soccer connection with MARTA, and my 5-year-old son Carter, who he thinks he's going to be playing for the Atlanta United soon, which he's not that good of a soccer player, but he now wants to go to see all of the soccer parks that are connected on the MARTA line. So I'll be calling you so that we can do this tour, and I'll be bringing my sidekick Carter with me. Welcome to the roundtable, and I we'll turn it over to you to give us some opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you. And as an aside, we are planning a tour of the station soccer, but we're going to wait until the fall when it's a little bit cooler. But as you had mentioned, my name's Jeff Parker. I'm the general manager and CEO at MARTA, and I want to thank you personally, Congresswoman, for all your support and energy, right? Support's one thing, but having a lot of energy around things that are important make things happen. And I truly appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing Chairman DeFazio into the conversation, because his role, as you know, is critical to making sure that that we have a long-term transportation authorization program going into the future. And I think that's particularly important here in the 5th District because, one, we know this region is growing so quickly. We know people are moving here. We know COVID-19 is going to be behind us, and the office buildings in the district are going to fill back up, and the roads are going to be clogged, and clearly people are going to have to rely on MARTA. But the other thing we know is that we've got a lot of opportunities in front of us to expand transit throughout this region. And if you look at our region by congressional district, we're blessed here in the 5th. I'm a resident of the 5th District, as I think all your panel members are actually.
I should have asked that as we were going through.
District. I think we all are. We live in communities, Atlanta and Clayton County, that have stepped up with local funding. And what we all know is that local communities have to have skin in the game to access federal funding. So we have a robust group of projects in front of us in the city of Atlanta and Clayton County, and then aspirational projects in other parts of the MARTA jurisdiction. I don't want to forget about how important, services throughout the MARTA jurisdiction, but we have huge opportunities in front of us, and we truly appreciate your vigor around making sure that reauthorization is done in a way that allows us to access a significant amount of project funding through the FTA, and ultimately expand transit here in this really important part of our country, the 5th District. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. And I think you heard the passion around transit from Chair DeFazio. So I take advantage of that for every opportunity that I can to make sure that I am speaking up on behalf of Atlanta, speaking up on behalf of the 5th District, and getting us the resources that we need to continue to grow our transit infrastructure, because it's going to take all of us working together to get this done. Absolutely.
Thanks.
And next up, y'all, we have Stacey Key, who is all over infrastructure development in Georgia. She's the president and CEO of the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council and the 5th Congressional District's representative on the Georgia Department of Transportation Board. And I wanted to bring her into the conversation because good transportation and infrastructure projects don't stop just at the boundaries of one municipality. And we have to have partners on the state level and look at this in a holistic way, because a lot of the traffic issues that we have, a lot of the concerns that we have, a lot of people are coming into the 5th District to go to work and to hang out and to be with their friends. And so we have to look at this as a holistic approach, and we have to have the state as a part of this conversation. So I would love for you to give us some opening remarks and tell us how Georgia fits into this big conversation that we're having on the federal level right now.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Congresswoman Williams, for allowing me to be a part of this roundtable. On behalf of the Georgia Department of Transportation and the State Transportation Board, again, I'm excited to be a part of this impressive group of transportation leaders. My name is Stacey Key, and I represent the 5th Congressional District on the State Transportation Board. That is the fighting 5th Congressional District. To provide a little background on Georgia DOT, for over 100 years, Georgia DOT has been responsible for the planning, construction, maintenance, and improvement of state roads and bridges throughout our state. In addition to maintaining and improving the roads and bridges, the department also provides planning and financial support for other modes of transportation, such as rail, transit, airport, and waterways. We don't do that alone, as Congresswoman Williams indicated. We do that in partnerships. We work with MARTA, we work with the Beltline, we work with the City of Atlanta, we work with lots of stakeholders, all municipalities, and we work with CIDs across the state in delivering innovative transportation solutions to the residents of our great state. I look forward to the discussion this evening. I look forward to talking about what some of the things that we're doing here at GDOT.
Thank you so much, Stacey. And now we have some questions that people have the opportunity to submit in advance. And we are streaming this live on social media and on YouTube, and questions are coming in, y'all. So we will do our best to get through as many as possible. Y'all, I never thought that transportation and infrastructure was gonna be like what everybody wanted to talk about, but here we are, and I am here for it.
Yep.
First question up tonight. This would be for MARTA. I know Congresswoman Williams requested $3 million for MARTA. If this project request is approved, what will the funds be used for?
Well, first of all, thank you for that support of the request. And actually, you showed the project on the video. As we went into the introduction. The project is an investment along Metropolitan Parkway, improving bus service. That's one of our busier bus corridors. And as I had mentioned earlier, the City of Atlanta has raised a half-cent sales tax to locally fund transit. We worked with the city, the mayor, and city council to prioritize those projects. One of them is a improvement to bus system, arterial bus rapid transit along Memorial Parkway, and will ultimately improve bus service with better stations, some more reliable service, better information at these bus stops around bus stop arrival. And ultimately, the other thing that we'll be looking to do is bring electric buses along these key corridors as well.
So that is the beginning of it. And I want you to know that there's a commitment from me that every opportunity that we have to bring more resources to continue to fund projects, we will continue to work with your office. Your staff has been great in making sure that no matter what time that the request needed to be in and how many times we had to change the way that it was submitted, we got what we needed because we are working together to make sure that everyone is represented.
Yeah.
The next question, I think this could be a twofold for Atlanta DOT and Georgia DOT. And let me see where this is from Joy. Joy said, I'm curious when some of the projects like fixing roads will be finished. They seem never ending and half done all over the city. Joy, I think first I want to say that we share your frustrations because we want them all done right now too. And we are working, and we just had the markup process and getting additional resources, but it does take a long time to get some of these big projects done. But this is a good opportunity for us to make sure that we're working together. Some things have jurisdictional lines that one entity has to handle, but we are truly working together to serve the people of this district at every level. You have every level of government represented right here tonight. And I will turn it over I'll let you start, Stacey, and then Josh, you can follow up.
And so Congresswoman Williams, you said it perfectly. Again, Joy, I'm sorry you're experiencing some problems with the growth of our city and seeing the improvements, but know that it takes time. It is not our intent to prolong any of those projects. Clearly, we want to get them completed and on to the next project. If you've got specific questions about a project, you can feel free to reach out to me directly at the DOT office, and I'll be glad to respond to any specific project. But no, the whole team is working in concert and working to complete every single project as quickly as possible.
Commissioner Rowan?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Stacey Key had to say. You know, there's really no interest on our end to prolong these. We want to get these projects done as soon as everyone else does. It's interesting though, because quite often there's a a fairly protracted period of design, and we hear a lot of questions about when are we going to start construction. And the minute we start construction, it's as if the questioning immediately pivots to, well, when are you going to finish? And the thing to keep in mind with road construction is, imagine you had to go to your job every day and allow tens of thousands of people into your workspace. So we have to maintain safe work zones for people to continue to use the roads, and we're subject to weather. And so that's always a wild card. So we encounter issues oftentimes we don't expect, but please know we're working diligently to complete these projects. And I'd like to add a shout out to our friends at GDOT, because I believe our relationship between the city and the state is as strong as it has ever been. And so we're working in lockstep together to deliver these projects.
I agree, Josh. Absolutely.
The next question is a Beltline specific question. As the Beltline, this is from Karina Newsom. As the Beltline continues to expand, how are we protecting low-income communities from being displaced by its presence, like the gentrification that's been the reality in some of the neighborhoods thus far?
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Newsom, that is a terrific question. And I have to be frank here. You know, we have gotten a lot more sophisticated on the housing affordability side from a Beltline perspective, you know, over the last three and a half years or so. But you know, that is part of our reality when this project first started, that if anyone is truly being fair, no one expected the Beltline to take off and catch fire like it has. And so we were playing a little bit of catch up, but just to fast forward with you a little bit, you know, again, over the last 3 years or so, that has been a major focus for the Beltline is housing affordability, because one of the superpowers for Atlanta is our diversity. And so you hear about all these companies that are coming to Atlanta. They come here because of our diversity, not because, you know, we're monolithic. It's because of, you know, we're rich in culture, and that's what they're coming here for. And so if infrastructure is pushing people out, we're going to just become like any other, you know, city out there. And that's not what we want to be in Atlanta. And so from a Beltline perspective, what we have done moving forward is to secure significant swaths of land within the city and close to the Beltline. And ultimately what that's going to allow us to do is exact deep, permanent affordability, specifically around the Atlanta Beltline loop. And also with our partner, the Atlanta Beltline Partnership, we have created a fund, which ultimately, as the Beltline comes through, and we all know that the property values are going to increase, this fund will be there to actually pay those rising property taxes that a lot of our neighborhoods and citizens will see as this project continues to mature. And so it's something that we're hyper focused on. We've tripled our affordable housing land holdings over the last 18 months. Again, this is a focus for us. We acquired land in Buckhead. We've acquired land in Adair Park, Oakland City, and we will continue to do that because, again, we want the Beltline to be a benefit to all of Atlanta and not just folks on the high end of that wealth spectrum.
Thank you for that. And that might lead us into the next question. This is from Susan May in Candler Park. And I will start to answer, and then I would love to hear from the MARTA, from everybody's perspective, if you submitted for a designated transit project to be funded, who will decide which projects in the 5th District get funded? And so some of that has to go back to which projects that everyone submitted to my office. So I will start with just some of the funding in the Invest in America Act is for specific member designated projects. And I made requests for funding for 6 different projects, and they were all advanced out of committee and are part in the Invest in America Act. So this was a way for every member, and this is the first year in over a decade that we've been able to do this. But so each member had an opportunity to weight projects, and I put up an open call. We had meetings with every municipality in the district, every county in the district and anyone who was critical to our transit infrastructure in the district to make sure that they knew the process, and we made it transparent. It was up on my website for submissions, and it's still up on the website so that you can see exactly what was submitted and the funding that was requested. And so that's how we went about it. And a lot of it was which projects were eligible for funding, because there's a lot of regulations around what we're able to submit and get funding back to the district for. But we wanted to make sure that we were making a comprehensive investment that included priorities in each part of the district. And so we were very intentional about funding in all 3 counties for the projects that we submitted. And I would love to hear from each entity on how you went about which projects to submit.
If I could start, really, you know, one issue is that we don't see this as absolutely the only bite of the apple. So we wanted to make sure that we were advancing projects that fit the criteria. Every single program that we access federal funds for has a different requirement, and so we saw the Metropolitan Parkway as a one of our simpler projects in our MARTA program that is deliverable on the earlier side, because it's a smaller size project relative to something like Campbellton Road or light rail on the Beltline. And so we saw that it was important to make sure that it was an impactful project, but B, something that we could deliver quickly. And, you know, I'll point out that we've been, you know, very successful here in the 5th District with federal funding for the Clayton County O&M facility, as well as federal funding for Summerhill BRT. So we look forward to, you know, working with you for years to come to prioritize our projects. And this is simply, from our perspective, just a start.
Yeah, and I want to be clear to everybody that the Invest in America Act, the designated projects, is just a very small portion of it. There is so much more in this infrastructure package that we're going to see coming down the pipeline. So this is absolutely not the last opportunity, but this is the portion that is moving right now, and we have so many more opportunities to continue to fund projects here in the 5th District.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here, Congresswoman. So yeah, you advanced the $5 million on behalf of the Beltline, and so much appreciated there. And what that is going to do for us, it is actually going to support what we describe as the South Side Trail segment of the Atlanta Beltline. So most people know that the East Side Trail has been completed, and then also the West Side Trail has been completed. But really, the Holy Grail, the money that you have put through in this program, is going to support, again, the South Side Trail segment. We almost call it the smiley face. So this is going to connect the East Side Trail to the West Side Trail, and those dollars, again, that you are pushing through are going to support that project specifically. And again, the Beltline is there to connect people and to connect communities. And one of the things that really excites me about the South Side Trail, and specifically this opportunity, is the connection and giving our schools kind of a safe route into schools. And so we got to think about Carver, we got to think about Slater. These are schools directly in the Beltline catchment area. And so this is going to be, you know, multifunctional for us. It's not just going to be an amenity, but this is going to be an opportunity to give our kids a safe pathway into their schools. And so really excited about that project on the South Side.
Yeah, and I'll kind of jump in here as well to echo many of the same comments with connections and constructability. I would also share that it's never too early to lobby your officials, because I received about 25 letters a year ago from the 4th grade class at the Tuskegee Airmen Global Academy. And they all range from, I can't walk to school, the traffic is too fast, it scares me. And that has really, you know, made an impression upon me. And so as we look at the Cascade Corridor, we do have unique opportunities at the intersection with Ralph David Abernathy to work with the state, to connect to the Beltline, to connect to existing Renew T-Splosh projects. And it sort of became the missing link. And so as we looked at, well, what do we have designed? What can we move pretty quickly into construction? It became a no-brainer. But I will tell you that the fourth grade class at TAG has made a lasting impression upon me, and you will see me pushing that section of roadway and probably other calls, because there's more work to be done along there.
Wow. Josh, I hate to follow behind you after that story, but
I should have gone dead last. Sorry about that, Stacey.
Yeah, and again, the approach I took, Congresswoman, was we did a call out to all of our partners, the counties and cities, and we got behind the initiatives around the counties and cities throughout the 5th Congressional District and supporting their initiatives forward with GDOT in partnership.
Well, I think that everybody has seen that this is like every entity that submitted a project, it connects in some sort of way with the other entity, because we have to do this together, even from the 4th graders at Tuskegee Airmen School, and their advocacy has helped us to move the needle forward and make sure that we are truly serving everyone and their transportation and infrastructure needs here in the district. The next question is from a YouTube user, and it is around drinking and sewage water. For drinking sewage, is there any assistance to improving consumption volume, replacing 5-gallon toilets with 1.28 gallons or less? Lowering consumption can lower stress on infrastructure and bills for people. And everybody watching in YouTube land, I did a infrastructure tour in the city of East Point, and the city of East Point runs their own water system, and it is very dated, and they are piecemealing it. Every time something breaks, every time something happens, they're just repairing one section at a time because they just don't have the funds to get it done. And they supply the drinking water that we take for granted. When you turn on the faucet to brush your teeth, you expect the water to just come out and it's going to be clean and you go about your day. But there's so much that goes into that process. And East Point supplies water for 3 of the cities in the 5th District: East Point, College Park, and Hapeville. And so we were able to we're working with them to advance a project, but we're also, the drinking water is a part of my bill, the WISE Act, which is included in the legislation that just came out of TNI, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and it creates a permanent green reserve that requires states to prioritize investments in things like water and energy efficiency, in addition to other environmentally innovative projects. So your concern is one of the reasons that I authored this legislation and worked with Chair DeFazio to make sure that we could get it passed. But this is something that was happening by a rule, but now it will be codified into law. So it won't matter who is in office. This is something that will happen in perpetuity. And so a lot of what we're doing is making sure that we have the policies in place to make sure that everybody is being served by our government. It shouldn't matter from one administration to the next. You shouldn't lose the quality of your drinking water or what is happening with basic infrastructure needs. So a lot of what Chairman DeFazio is doing right now is making sure that we get the policies in place that will live much longer than any administration that is serving. Our next question is from, this is one for MARTA, Facebook user Ashley Jenkins. Is there a way to get MARTA from Art Center to Cobb Galleria?
There is. We have an agreement, longstanding agreement with Cobb County, Cobb Link, and we run a bus up to their transfer station right in the area of Cobb Galleria. And so the key to that is to use your Breeze card, make sure you have cash on it. And I believe you would ride the Cobb County bus going to, and you'd be able to ride the MARTA bus coming back. So it's really easy to do. There's a direct connection right from Art Center Station. And if you were to call our 404-848-5000 number, our abled customer service representatives can walk you right through that to make sure that you understand all the details. But the short answer is you can absolutely do that.
The next one is from YouTube user P. Perkins. And this one is around, this one will be for you, Ms. Key. Will you speak to GDOT's proposed privatized toll lanes on I-285? Will that project include express lanes for MARTA buses and vans?
I believe it does. It includes that. The 285 project is outside of the 5th Congressional District. It is part of the 6th Congressional District. 285 at 400, I'm sorry. What, 285?
It came in from a YouTube user, so
I believe it's 285 or 400, yeah, which is outside the 5th Congressional. But yes, I believe MARTA will have access as part of that project, and it's probably the largest. I believe this is one of the largest projects that GDOT has ever let, and so anybody who's in that area can tell you there's a lot going on around that project. And Jeff, you might want to chime in on, but I'm pretty sure that MARTA will have
Yeah, we're working closely with GDOT staff to make sure that the design of the managed lanes will ultimately facilitate the future stations, future BRT stations. We're working with Fulton and DeKalb County and ultimately Cobb County as well. They're outside of the MARTA jurisdiction, but this would be a system to make sure that we have the local funding. With the hope of accessing some federal funds later. So that is that is one of the projects that we want to advance. But in this case, we do need to get some more local funding to make sure that we could go after some federal match money for that project.
So I'm sure we'll be hearing from you.
Absolutely.
And I think this also, although this is outside of the 5th district, it just goes to show that when we get in our cars or when we are trying to get on transit to go somewhere, if I see a sale somewhere and I feel like I need to get to perimeter, I just want to get to perimeter. And I don't want to be confined by where MARTA is going to stop or where the toll lane is going to, like, you're not thinking about the district boundaries when you're trying to live your life every day. And so that's why it was very important to me to have everyone here as a part of this conversation working together. Our next question, YouTube is on fire tonight, y'all. All the questions are coming in from YouTube. Ms. Key, the question is, I guess around community engagement. Is someone with GOT meeting with MPUs and communities to make sure that they understand the process on how to get their GDOT projects on a list? Will South End I-285 get equal funding that the top end is getting?
And so absolutely, I will tell you, I meet with a lot of MPUs myself personally. We developed a process last year that can communicate. We were actually working very closely with the city of Atlanta and making sure that all the MPUs know the process of how to get projects engaged, how the process flows, what to do. So there is a document around doing that. And if if the YouTube wants to reach out to me, I'll be glad to share that with you. But we did work in partnership with the city of Atlanta about last year, or maybe 2019 actually, in developing that document so that all the MPUs can understand, the process. And if you've got questions, you know where to go. So yes, that exists. You want to reach out for a copy of that, feel free to do so. And I'll make sure it gets in your hands.
Thank you. And Clyde, the hot button issue is affordable housing and how this is tying into the Beltline. And so this question is not from YouTube, it's from Facebook. And it comes from Trisha. Trisha said, is the Beltline using the area median income to determine affordability? Because really the affordability targets need to be zip code based, because using Metro Atlanta AMI will still overwhelmingly price out legacy residents since it averages in high rent areas.
Yeah, so that's a fair question. And so for folks out there, area median income, roughly, because our mandate originally for the Beltline was to exact roughly about 5,600 units of affordable housing created or preserved Now that's what that's part of our redevelopment plan. That's what it states. But in practice, we're doing something much deeper than 80% of area median income. And so you may remember in my earlier comments when I talked about acquiring land, that's really the critical piece. And so you can pick a percentage. You can pick 50 or 40%. But if you don't control the land, it's very hard to do. And that's why we have created this broader strategy versus just giving developers incentives. We actually control the land. We're putting that into the public hands. And so if you look at our pipeline to date, so we have over 900 units of affordable housing in our pipeline right now. And the majority of those are at 60% I and below. And the way we'll be able to push that even deeper is controlling the land. And that is really, if you don't remember any of the gobbledygook that I'm talking about on this call, controlling the land is absolutely key. And again, we have tripled our land holdings over the last 18 months, specifically for that reason, because 80% of AMI is not necessarily helpful. That is on the workforce housing side. You really need to get deeper, and controlling the land is going to allow us to do that.
And next month, just so that everyone knows, our next town hall, we are going to be focused on housing. And I am working with Secretary Fudge's office and in HUD so that we can have the experts. I want to bring you the experts, bring you the information that you need right here in the district. And so I don't know if you're going to be tired of dealing with this, but Beltline is welcome to be a part of that conversation as well.
Congresswoman,
the right question is absolutely the right question. And I will tell you, and that's why I love this conversation, because I think you hit it on the head. We're not working in a silo here. So, working with Jeff, working with Stacey, working with Josh, we're connected here. And I will tell you, even MARTA is thinking through how they can be a player on the housing affordability side. And so that's when you're really moving the needle, when all of these organizations are collaborating and working together. But that is absolutely the right question when we're talking about what's going to be beneficial for our city. The mayor has made, obviously, her $1 billion commitment. We have our part to play from a Beltline perspective, and we're going to deliver. But really, a part of that is controlling that land. And so you may remember, Congresswoman, we acquired the 31 acres in the historic Western Heights Bankhead area, not far from Microsoft. And when Microsoft is coming to our community, we love it. We want them to come here. But let's be honest, that is going to create some changes specifically in that area. And so controlling land, again, and I'm trying to be repetitive on purpose, that is the piece. That is going to be the key to really making sure that our communities can thrive in place.
Congresswoman, let me just follow up on that, because MARTA is a significant landholder, and we've got a significant number of projects. We've got either delivered, planned, in construction, about 1,500 units of affordable housing that we're doing. We're in the middle of constructing 300-unit site at King Memorial Station in an underutilized parking lot on the side closest to Memorial Drive. 100 of the 300 units will be affordable. We have, I believe it's 7 stations in the MARTA system that exist in opportunity zones. And so we're working on putting out a solicitation. And as the question was asked here, are you relying on average AMIs, or are you using the zip code AMIs? So our plan on those opportunity zone projects, which are in some of the, some areas that are going through change, but can really benefit substantial from affordable housing, we'll be advancing those projects with zip code based affordable housing. And that includes stations like Bankhead Station, where Microsoft is about to build a substantial investment campus there. We own property at our Bankhead Station, And we're going to be putting out a solicitation to hopefully attract affordable housing at that site so that we can make sure that at a zip code based level that we're creating housing at the property that we already own.
So what I hear is that you're going to be invited to the next conversation around housing as well.
Love to.
The next question came in through email from Brad. Brad said, I live in East Atlanta Village within 3 blocks of Moreland Avenue. I'm on 2 committees for the neighborhood, on the East Atlanta Transportation Committee and Multi-Neighborhood South Moreland Avenue Working Group for Safer Moreland. My question is, what is being considered by those on this forum to take actions that we've been discussing with GDOT, ATL-DOT, the Atlanta City Council, and the State House and State Senate on this stretch of state highway that has divided many neighborhoods and make a safer and more walkable area? Several of us participated in a road safety audit with all stakeholders, and believe me, this stretch of highway from 285 to Little 5 Points is extremely dangerous to walk or bike, much less attempt to cross.
Let me start off. We recently had, probably several weeks ago, we've got an ongoing dialogue with the Moreland Avenue group around the safety. I believe GDOT has some outstanding items in terms of providing some data. We've met numerous times with the community and making sure we've got the community input and thoughts around that. I've toured it myself, the Moreland Avenue corridor, to look and to understand some of the feedback and the comments. And so I would say, if I'm not mistaken, we've got a meeting coming up in the next 2 weeks or so with various groups around the Moreland Avenue to, again, continue the dialogue on the changes around making that corridor safer and more pedestrian friendly. So more to come. We're working on it. There's more to come around that from the GDOT perspective. I'm intimately involved with it.
Yeah, and Congresswoman Williams, I will attest to, I know Brad. I will attest to his involvement and actually the good ideas that he has. But as Stacey said, it's that discussion that how do we make it safer and more walkable? And what we're talking about really is how do we reduce speed? And so it's a very fast corridor. By statute, the state route is a truck route. So, we really just need to slow everything down. And what do we have at our disposal to be slowing down these busy roads? And this is really where we launched with GDOT as we sat down and talked about that when the day is done, that the tie that binds us is safety. And we have challenges on our local streets and we have challenges on the state routes within the city. And we've worked collectively to address places like Donnelly Hollowell. And I would argue that Moreland is probably in the driver's seat right now, bad pun intended, that is going to be getting a lot of attention in the near future because it is a very dangerous corridor.
Agreed.
So this is just another example of entities working together, and you've already, Commissioner Rowan, you already knew this person who submitted the question tonight, because we have to make sure that our projects are community centered and we're listening to the people who live in the neighborhoods that we're serving. The next question is from YouTube. Wanda Harding asked, what are the plans for updating Georgia 166 Lakewood Expressway? The exit ramps are in really bad condition. What are the next steps?
Was it a Wanda?
Yes, Wanda.
Wanda, I don't know specifically about that corridor, that specific area, but more than happy to take that as a question offline and address that with her specifically, but don't know that specific exit or that specific corridor.
So Wanda, what we will do is make sure it came in through Facebook, and so we can follow up so that we can get her an answer to this question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was just going to share that just about 2 years ago, we collaborated with GDOT, and although it's a state route, we included a big portion of 166 in our resurfacing package. So it'd be good to know which specific ramps we're talking about too.
The next question is from Facebook. Brian on Facebook. There are several projects in progress now. The streetcar to Ponce, and then and the Campbellton Road corridor, how can we ensure adequate funding goes to the LRT, which 60% of the people voted for?
Yeah, so what he's referencing is we're advancing the Campbellton Road project. Several months ago, we completed a Tier 1 EIS, and now we are doing an analysis, alternatives analysis, and this is part of the federal process that will make us ultimately available, eligible for federal funds. And we have two alternatives that we're considering. We're in the heat of public outreach, continuing the public outreach for a few more months. And the two alternatives that we have in front of us is a light rail option that's a little bit more expensive, and a BRT along the corridor. The BRT would run along the sides of the street. The light rail vehicle would run in the middle, have some bigger impacts to the businesses along the corridor. So we're doing that public outreach right now. We've done a lot of it with the community. We're doing it with the riders on the buses next. That's a real busy bus corridor, and we'll be reaching out to the business owners to understand their perspective on these, and ultimately we'll make a decision. We've funded the project from a funding level as we prioritize the projects as if it's a light rail project. So if that is the right alternative to advance, we will be able to advance it as a light rail project. The decision is not around funding. It's about making sure that the transportation alternative that ultimately we deliver to that community makes sense for that community. As he said, some of the feedback that we've got is about 60-40 from some of the community, but we're also still collecting that information and working with the businesses along that community, around that corridor as well. So it's a work in progress, and we should have an answer this summer, this fall, in terms of what that right mode of transportation is.
And then going east, I guess, to DuPont's, and so just making sure that people are reminded that the original thought behind the Beltline, as a transportation corridor, so that expansion of light rail to the Beltline, on the Beltline, is something that we'll continue to support MARTA on from a Beltline perspective, but super excited about seeing that get advanced.
And that was the next question. Are you reading my Google Doc with the questions being submitted? Because the question was around light rail on the Beltline. What is the timeline, and when can we expect to see rail on the Beltline?
Absolutely. And I'm going to punt to Jeff. So
the first project that we have in the queue is what we refer to as Streetcar Extension East. The plan for that is to open it in 2027, as Clyde had just mentioned. That was the project he was just talking about, and it's basically an extension of the streetcar onto the Beltline, and then headed north up to basically where Ponce City Market is. That is clearly the simplest segment in order to advance a transit project, a light rail project on there, that part of the corridor. And then the other piece that we're advancing is really trying to understand the engineering impacts that we know we have in other areas along that corridor, including like crossing Monroe with all the state highway. You've got some roads that kind of come in at different angles. You've got impacts to parking for some businesses there. How do we get to Lindbergh? These are all issues that really haven't been studied. So we've got a lot of, we're advancing, have a engineering firm under contract now that will identify those risk areas so that we can really get a true understanding of the cost to run light rail really from in that northeast quadrant of the Beltline. and that project moves forward. And we'll begin the environmental process this fall for that.
So the next one is an easy one for everyone. And I've seen this come in different iterations. So how can people find out when you're having public meetings for projects in their neighborhoods? And how can people stay involved and engaged to keep up to date with what you're doing? Let's just go around. Stacey.
Oh, all right, good.
She was first on my screen.
All right, okay.
I think for us, Congresswoman, again, you're going to have to go to the GDOT website. Has all the information. It has everything.
GDOT website.
www. Oh, you know what? I go to Google it. Google GDOT. GDOT. I'm gonna pull it up because you know what? I go to it differently. www.dot.georgia.gov. Georgia Department of Transportation. It's got a listing of projects. It's got road and traffic data.
And it's streaming on the bottom of the screen right now. So that is dot.ga.gov.
Yep.
Commissioner Rowan.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a moving target for us, and I'll tell you why. So we've experimented with what we call high tech and old school. We've been very dependent upon our website through the pandemic. We've gotten a lot of mileage out of community town halls. We've even experimented with what we call coffee with the commissioner. And so the first one of those we did, we had a whopping 3 people. One of those 3 was actually the 4th grade teacher at TAG who introduced me to her class. The third one we did, we had 50 people. So we're making a very concerted effort to be present in the community. And I've created some demand that I'm struggling to fulfill. And so we're actually going to be creating an entire team within DOT. And we've beta tested this in a couple of council districts, that their sole purpose is going to be to essentially represent DOT within the community. And so we've made a very concerted effort to work primarily through our NPUs. And so we have a monthly NPU report that we provide that shows the projects that are in progress, that are coming. We have a similar report that we provide to the council members. I know sometimes these reports, the scope of the project doesn't just jump out of a project description, which is where I believe when it's all said and done, we're going to end up with about 4 people who are going to be geographically assigned to be resources for the community. I found that, and I heard it again today. I was out on site, and I just keep hearing, thank you for coming out and listening to us. So I think there are 2 ingredients. It's us going to them, and it's paying attention while we're there. And so we're going to be dedicating more resources to that effort.
Thank you. Sorry, my screen was moving. MARTA, Jeff.
Yeah, so obviously it's MARTA.com is our website. All of the information is on there, but I think that's just one way that we do this. We've got a lot of innovative things that we're doing to make sure that we're connecting with the communities that we serve. One thing we do very intentionally is anytime that we're doing a public meeting in a community, we make sure that the elected officials in that community are well aware of them. So, for example, when if we're working in Campbellton Corridor, we're working directly with the city council members there to make sure they're using their networks to get out. But one of the really interesting things that we've done is we're one of the first, I think the second transit agency in the country that is actually working with the Nextdoor app. We all, get Nextdoor and see that our neighbor's cat was crawling over someone's fence. But we also now MARTA uses Nextdoor to make sure that we're connecting directly with the neighborhood. So anytime we have a community meeting in a neighborhood, we're on the Nextdoor app letting people know. We have a consultant, a contractor that does the yard signs. So we make sure that we put signs out, not only at our stations, but also around the community, like, just notifying someone. So we're doing it every which way we can. But obviously, old school, go on our website, it's MARTA.com, and you'll find everything out on there.
and Clyde, how can people access and follow the Beltline, stay engaged, and hear about the community engagement process?
So yeah, absolutely. So definitely check us out at beltline.org/meetings, plural there, beltline.org/meetings. And we believe that that is one of the things that we enjoy from a Beltline perspective. This project started as a community effort. And so we are very intentional at staying connected, from a community engagement perspective. That is actually the largest department in my organization, because again, this is really important to us. We really do not go to do anything, like we won't even chew gum without having a conversation with the community out there. And I would be remiss if not giving our community engagement and planning team a plug. We actually have a meeting coming up on June 28th, and we're actually going to talk about that key site that we acquired in Bankhead. We call it the Chapel Road site, and this is going to be starting of a community conversation about what we can do with that site, even beyond affordable housing. So definitely check us out there.
And there is a request coming in for a DOT town hall on a part of Clayton County that I do not represent. So we're going to have to make sure that Dana Lemon gets that request down in Georgia's 13th congressional district, down Terra Boulevard. So lots of engagement, and apparently people are not tired of talking about transit and transportation options and how we're going to fund it and how we're going to get this done, y'all. I am grateful for the partnership with everyone who was able to join tonight, all of the constituents who are tuned in through social media, through YouTube, and we're recording this and we'll share it out to our email list, the link, so that anyone who was not able to join can get the information that they need. Y'all, in Congress right now, we have the opportunity to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our infrastructure needs. And I am going to make sure that the 5th Congressional District gets everything that we need out of this investment. We are making sure that we also are bold and visionary about what infrastructure looks like. And we are making sure that as we do that, things like childcare that have never been considered traditional infrastructure are in the conversation, because we all saw what happened when everything shut down in March of last year and people can't go back to work. You need transit to get to work, whether that is on the roads, whether that is on rail. And you also need to make sure that your families are taken care of while you're at work. So we are being creative about what we envision as transit, at what we envision as infrastructure, and how we get that funded. And there are lots of opportunities. We just had this is just the first step with the Invest in America Act. And we're going to continue to do the work for the people. And I am grateful for the partnership of everyone that is here. Next month's town hall, we will be discussing housing, and we'll be partnering with Secretary Fudge and HUD. And so I look forward to bringing back some of my friends here tonight to have this very timely discussion and bringing on some new faces so that we can get information out to the community. And I know that there are some people that have tuned in tonight and they don't live in Georgia's 5th district, but I hope this information was helpful for you as well, because we know that Atlanta is the jewel of the Southeast, and I am proud to call Atlanta home. And I know that so many other people are as well. So welcome wherever you're tuning in from, and I look forward to talking with you next month. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good night.